Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this afternoon's Clean Air session. Our first presenters are Mark Sather, Mike Miller, and Josh Madden with EPA. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our first presenter, Mark. Mark, you have the floor.
Thank you, Karen. Hello, everybody. Happy Earth Day. And I'm going to kick off by giving a review of the latest Region 6 tribal ozone, nitrogen dioxide, and carbon monoxide monitoring data. I put up my info if you need to get in touch with me, both the email and the phone number. So this first slide shows the latest status of the 8-hour ozone design values in Region 6 by county. So this is depicting the highest monitor in each county of the 5 Region 6 states. And so when you look at Texas and New Mexico, this is where we have the highest ozone concentrations. Currently, we have 8-hour ozone non-attainment areas in Houston, San Antonio, Dallas-Fort Worth, and then southeastern, a portion of southeastern Doña Ana County in New Mexico. Further, we have other counties that are currently not designated, formally non-attainment, but that are recording current levels that are over 70 parts per billion. And that would be El Paso County, 2 monitors in southern Doña Ana County, the Chaparral and the Santa Teresa sites, the Carlsbad site in southeastern New Mexico, and then we have 1 site in Albuquerque that's at 71. As you can see, all of the other counties in Region 6 are colored yellow, so they're meeting the standard at 70 ppb or below. And going up to Oklahoma, which is where we have the tribal monitors, we have a 65 at Sealing, a 67 at Lawton, and a 63 parts per billion at McAllister. And the next slides, I'm going to go into more detail on the tribal monitors in Oklahoma and Oklahoma City and Tulsa. This slide shows each individual ozone monitor in the region for detail. And most of the sites have the 3 years of data for 2018 to 2020 that we can compute the 8-hour ozone design values. The Carlsbad Caverns National Park site is a new site. We have 2 years of data there. And then the clear circles in Oklahoma, these are the special purpose monitors that ODEQ operates to get information on transport in the southern part of the state from northern Texas and then between Oklahoma and Kansas. The tribal monitors are pictured right here. We have Quapaw, which is in the northeastern corner. And then we have 4 Cherokee Nation sites, Newkirk, Pryor, Stillwell, and Roland. Here are the tribal sites and the trends analysis for the 8-hour ozone design values. And as you can see from the late 90s, 1999 to the present, overall we have a nice downward trend. We're quite a ways below 70 parts per billion now, which is really good from a public health standpoint. Currently, we have for 2018 to 20, we have 5 monitors. Now, the Newkirk monitor has recently been discontinued. So that's this site right here. It ended 2018 to 20 with a design value of 59. And as you can see, we range from 53 ppb at Quapaw to 58 and then 59 for the Cherokee Nation sites. Now for Oklahoma City, again, we have a nice downward trend over time. They're closer to the standard, but are not over it. As you can see, we've had a few recent years lately right at 70 parts per billion. But right now we're at 69. I expect this area to continue to be below the standard this summer. For Tulsa, we're a little bit lower than Oklahoma City. We're currently at 66 parts per billion. Again, a long-term downward trend. Now I'm going to turn to carbon monoxide. This is the entire carbon monoxide network in Region 6. It's a much smaller network because the monitors are really, really low, quite low compared to the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. For tribal CO, we have one site in the region. We have the Cherokee Nation site at Stillwell. And the latest design values for 2020, we have a 1 hour design value of 1.5 parts per million, which is only 4% of the standard. The standard is 35. And then for the 8 hour design value, we're at 0.8 parts per million, which is 9% of the 9 ppm standard. So we're doing really well. And these are the trends. So we have the 1 hour 35 part per billion standard up here, or part per million, excuse me. And then the 9 part per million CO 8 hour standard down here. And then we have the Stillwell data at the very bottom. So you can see that we're very low. We've been very low. The 8 hour CO concentrations have not changed that much. We had a little increase in 2018 for the 1 hour CO, but the 1 hour CO is only 4% of the standard. So we're continuing to be very, very low. Now we'll turn to nitrogen. These are the NOx monitors, which also consist of the nitrogen dioxide. And we have one monitor in Oklahoma that is tribal, and that's the Cherokee Nation site at Roland. And again, we have nice low values. The design values for 18 to 20. The 1 hour is 26 parts per billion. That's 26% of the 100 ppb standard. And the annual mean for 2020 was 5 parts per billion. This is 9% of the 53 part per billion annual standard. So let's take a look at the trends. Up here we have the 1 hour 100 ppb standard, and here we have the 53 ppb annual standard. And so for the 1 hour, we have a nice gradual decrease over time from 2013 to the present. And for the annual, again, we have a nice gradual downward trend, which is at the moment bottomed out at 5 ppb, which again is less than 10% of the standard. So nice low values for NO2 compared to the public health standard. And with that, that closes my presentation on ozone, NO2, and CO. Karen, do you want me to take any questions at this point?
You can stop sharing your screen, and that will allow you to see your chat box a little easier. I don't see any questions in the chat box just for you. But I will go and give Mike presenter privileges, and that way he can start sharing his screen. Mark, did you see any questions?
I did not, no.
Okay. I don't see any yet either. So with that, we will go ahead and move along to Mike. Mike, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Let me pull up, whoops, I hit the wrong button. Okay. I have I'm going to just talk real briefly about SO2 and lead, but I have another topic that I'd like to tell you about that I think you'd be interested in regarding sensors. And I think some of you may have been involved in dealing with sensors. These are slow-cost sensors, not regulatory. And I'd really like to know if anybody has had experience or is interested in gaining more experience in that. But first, just real quickly, let me go over the SO2. You know, SO2 is a great story. Here's a national slide from all the way back to 1980, showing a reduction in levels. This is just on the average of all reporting monitors for that period. So it's dramatically below the standard, 75 parts per billion. There's only one tribal monitor that's run by the Cherokee Nation. So it's a great story. There's really not much to tell. There's a couple non-attainment areas. They're very small in East Texas and a couple in Louisiana. And here's the Region 6 view, also just extremely low. So it's really not, just a good story. Not much, nothing interesting there. Lead, same thing. I don't have a slide for that, but it has gone down, mostly attributed to the elimination of lead in gasoline. So lead is a great reduction as far as ambient air goes. Great story. So what the other thing, and if any questions about lead SO2, please let me know. But the other big thing that I wanted to know about are these co-located air sensor shelters that we are trying to get out. This is a project that we're doing with Office of Research and Development. It was funded a couple years ago. Region 4 started it. Ryan Brown is a contact there, and he asked me to get involved and so we could get more funding. So they had put out a couple of these shelters the first year, and then we got more funding this year, and we're looking for agencies to put this out. So now I know most of you guys aren't regulatory, but we're looking for regulatory agencies to put out a air monitoring sensor shelter so that other tribes that don't have big programs can go co-locate these sensors at a regulatory monitor. So Cherokee Nation has agreed to do this. They're going to receive one of these. These are free. We produce them, ship them, and then the agency just has to set them up at their regulatory monitor. So the whole issue is that we have a huge variability in the sensor data quality. It's a real problem because they are cheap, low cost, they're not regulatory. So co-location is really key thing to get good data. So we want any group, when they're doing a study, to co-locate these sensors at a regulatory monitor. And that's what the shelter's for. It's just a little rain shelter, a place to secure these sensors so they can see how they compare to the regulatory data. So we're trying to put these in different parts of the U.S. To help with co-location. We hope to get higher, better quality sensor data from that. You can see this picture just shows the opening with various types of sensors in there. What we're looking for are regulatory sites that have ozone and PM monitoring there. So if it's just a single ozone site, that's not so great, but it's okay. Or if it's just PM, hopefully the more regulatory monitoring, the better, because you want to obviously compare, if you're doing ozone and PM, you want to compare it to those regulatory monitors. So, and the agency has to provide space to install it, power. Hopefully it's in a cellular network, has cellular network coverage, and, I think 99% do. But really what I wanted to tell everybody here is to, even though you may not be eligible to get one if you don't have a regulatory monitor, to lobby the agency you're nearest to that has one and ask them to receive this so that you can use it. So we put out the call about a month ago to our partners, state, local, and tribal, that have the regulatory monitors, and we asked if anybody wanted one. So Cherokee wants one. We haven't heard from anybody else, but if any tribe or pueblo thinks they could use this, then you can go to your nearest state or local agency and remind them this is available, and they can put this out free of cost, and there'd be a use for it. So I think that's basically all I had. If there are any questions.
Thank you, Mike. If you want to, go ahead and stop sharing your screen.
Oh,
That way you can
okay.
see your chat box.
Stop.
And then I think we have a question. Let me look here. It says, do we have to contact you directly? I'm not sure exactly what they are asking there.
Oh, I didn't get my contact information. I'm sorry, I should have had a slide up front, but it's Mike Miller. My phone number is 214-665-7550. And my email is miller.michael@epa.gov. And yeah, I'd be happy to discuss it with anybody, answer any questions, have a conference call with whoever.
And also, if you didn't get his Mike's email address wrote down, you can email me and I'll be happy to share that with you also. Mike, if you want to go ahead and hover at the top of your screen, and there should be a little box or something that pops up and says stop sharing screen.
Yeah, I just can't. No. Oh, I see. Oh, I see. All right.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to give presenter privileges to Erica, and Erica Ledoux. Ledoux, hopefully I didn't butcher that name too much, is our next presenter. So Erica, you have the floor.
Okay, yeah, no worries, Karen. It's Ledoux.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries at all. Okay. Can you see my first slide?
No, not yet.
Okay, all right. I think it might take a little time. Let's see what.
Now we can see it.
Okay, great. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This will probably be a short presentation as well. I wanted to use the opportunity to introduce myself. I've got my contact information up there. Hello, my name's Erica Ledoux, and I also have Cynthia Caleri's contact information. If you can't reach me, you can always reach her. She is the section chief and my boss of the air permit section. Since the beginning of 2021, this year, I am the new tribal coordinator. I am your technical resource for air permits on tribal nation lands. This new assignment for myself, this change in our air permit section, is due to Bonnie Berganza's retirement, which was the end of last year in December 2020. I'm excited, but also a little apprehensive, nervous, if you will, if I'm being honest. And that stems from just the desire to do the job well and to do a good job for you. I realize Bonnie's retirement leaves a huge gap or hole, if you will, of experience and knowledge. and I'm just finding my feet in this new challenge. And I beg for your patience during this time. Definitely can't replace a Bonnie. I can only just find my own way by working hard and conscientiously and diligently and doing my best in this new position for you and your communities. I'm here to listen, to learn, and to help you, the tribal nations, if you allow, with whatever is important to you regarding air permitting and air quality in your area and with your projects. Similar to Bonnie, I have an undergraduate degree in chemical engineering, but unlike Bonnie, I have not been in the environmental uh, arena for as long. The bulk of my career was spent with a private company. I worked with a petrochemical company industry straight out of college. And my work included process and design and later plant operations. I did get the opportunity to do a stint in our environmental department for this company and coordinated several incinerator burns for permit compliance. And I did a brief stint in environmental consulting, I guess long enough to realize that that wasn't for me. I have been with EPA for 10 years this May. I have previously served as the New Mexico and City of Albuquerque Air Permit Coordinator, which entailed program oversight, permit review, and as a technical resource for them. I have had the opportunity to be a permit writer and worked with others on permits on tribal nation lands in New Mexico and Oklahoma, and also permit writer and technical reviewer on GHG permits for the state of Texas. Also, I've done some work on state implementation plan revisions in Texas and New Mexico. Let's see to my slide. It's this table right here, that summary table for the permitting activity that we've had on tribal nation lands for the last 2 years or so. I believe this information is also included in the RTOC report. Even through a pandemic and working from home, managing kids who have been attending school virtually, elderly care, COVID scares with family and friends, even battling family and housemates over space in the home and bandwidth of Wi-Fi. And also here in Texas, we had our Snowmageddon, the power crisis. We've overcome these obstacles to achieve some accomplishments with the issuance of several permits on tribal nation lands, primarily in New Mexico and Oklahoma. As you can see, we have about 7 permits that we've worked on. First up was the Monarch Waste Technology permit. Let's see. This permit was an initial Part 71, Title V permit for a infectious waste incinerator, and this was located on Nambe Pueblo in New Mexico. It was issued in May of 2020. EPA, as an update for this facility, EPA did receive word from Nambe Pueblo that this facility has stopped operation and will be decommissioning all of their equipment for removal from the site. However, it was one of the permits that we worked on and did follow through and issue in May of 2020. Next is another Part 71 permit on Laguna Pueblo in New Mexico. This was in Cibola County, and it was issued July 30th, 2020. And the Part 71 permits are good for 5 years. So this will not be up for renewal until 2025. The next was Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, Choctaw Nation Casino and Resort in Durant and in Bryan County. This was for a minor new source review permit. It was issued in September 17th, 2020. Enterprise Field Services, Lindrith Compressor Station in New Mexico and on Jicarilla Apache Reservation, tribal lands. This was another Part 71. It was issued this year on March 11th, 2021, and it again will be good for the next 5 years. It won't be up for renewal until 2026. The next one that was issued here recently, March 25th, 2021, was Choctaw Nation, Pacola Casino and Resort for a minor new source review. And it was issued on Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma Trust Lands. The next one up also was Choctaw Nation Defense Manufacturing. This is a metal fabrication and coatings facility, and it was for a synthetic minor new source review permit. This is currently at notice for public comment from April 1st to April 30th. So it's pending. And I did include some information at the bottom, the docket number for this draft permit. If anyone is interested in looking at the permit record and the documents there. Also, the very last but not least, Transwestern Pipeline Company, a Laguna Compressor Station in New Mexico on Laguna Pueblo. Tribal lands, Part 71, it's a renewal, and it's pending as well. The comment period runs from April 13th through May 13th. And the information is at the bottom, the docket number, and it's at regulation.gov. I'd like to, I guess I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge at this time and thank Choctaw Nation for allowing EPA the opportunity to work with them, and also commend Choctaw Nation for their efforts with compliance with their facilities and upcoming projects. Although it's not reflected on the table, we currently have we're working on a source determination so that we can determine the path forward for Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma's headquarters facility, for the headquarters site. And, once we determine the path forward, then we'll know the permit actions that will be needed for this facility located at this site. I encourage all tribal nation lands to reach out and contact EPA on any questions you may have on your existing sources, any upcoming new projects, any modifications at existing sources, so we can work with you together on determining if a permit is needed and what type of permit that would be. I guess in closing, I would like to leave you with and this is found at Part 49, the minor NSR tribal rules, the minor NSR threshold limits for non-attainment and attainment areas. These are the threshold limits that we look at when determining if your facility source is applicable to an NSR permit. Please use the contact information that I indicated at the very beginning. Call, email, if you have any questions or concerns. Also, if you want, you can direct your questions through Randy G. That will be fine as well. Also, want to give a heads up. EPA would like to encourage allottees to see EPA on permits, in particularly Oklahoma. There may be some uncertainty there on where to go for permitting. Please reach out. If you're unsure, we're here to help. And that is, I think, the end of my presentation. If there's any questions, I'm going to go ahead and unshare. Sharing. So how do I, stop sharing.
Thank you, Erica.
Okay.
So if anyone has any questions, you can use the chat box. If you're calling in today, you will need to email Erica or Randy G, or you can send your questions to me and I can forward them to Erica. So I don't see any questions in the chat box here. Erica, do you see any in your chat box?
Oh, I just see a message from Eric Wall. The Choctaw Nation thanks you. So, hey, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Erica. We appreciate it. Next up, we actually had a presenter before Erica, Josh Madden, but I haven't seen where he has been able to join us just yet. So I'll keep watching to see if he joins us. And also, I believe Cindy wasn't able to join us today. So we'll go ahead and move along. Let me change Anjane's role to presenter, and I will turn the floor over to Anjane.
Let me get my presentation up here. This is it. Bits. Can you guys see that?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Anjane Gautreaux. Many of you already know me, but I am technically, I'm an environmental protection specialist, officially on record. But many of you know me as the Tribal Air Coordinator and Project Officer for Region 6 Air Grants. We've had a reorganization, as many of you know, in the past couple of years, like I think it was FY19. So I went ahead and put all of our new division, branch, and section names that correspond with my information, just in case you ever need to know. And I'm going to share this presentation with everyone, so you'll have it. In case I go through too fast, you'll have all this documented. Just to give you a heads up, for those of you who don't necessarily work with air grants, in this region, we've consolidated pretty much all of the air grants under myself. And so I'm known as like the tribal air person. With that comes the Clean Air Act Section 103 and Section 105 grants, and the state and tribal radon grants I have recently acquired. So I don't know too much about those, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. There are also two other types of grants that I've managed before, but they're both national competitions that are managed in headquarters. And I usually am just sent a grant application and someone says, here, they want a grant, so you're managing this now. This community scale air toxics ambient monitoring grant, I don't have too much information about that, but if anybody's ever interested, we have had a tribe successfully get a grant before, and I think it was like $700,000. So there's money in that. If you're ever interested, just shoot me an email and I'll try to get that information for you. Same thing with DERA. We have a coordinator here in Region 6, and I'll give you her information in a little bit. But that also is a national headquarters competition. And I believe it's usually a general national competition. But this year, they have sectioned off some funding specifically for tribes. So I'll point that out later in the presentation as well. And hang on, let me move something that's in my way. Okay. Sorry, there was something blocking my view. These are all the types of grants that I manage that I just mentioned on the previous page. These are how many grants that I technically have in-house right now, or have managed at FY21, because I have one about to close out. So just to give you a heads up, the 103 and the 105 grant are the same pot of money. The allocation comes from headquarters in the same pot. So the 105 and the PPGs there, the performance partnership grants, those are pretty much the same thing. It's just a matter of what type of vehicle you're going to put it on, the 105 or the partnership. But all three of those come out of the same pot of money for your air component. Radon grant, I have one right now. That's another allocation that we get here in the region. I believe, I'm new to this one, but I believe it's one pot of money with the state money. But we have someone that kind of coordinates that. So if you're ever interested, I have some contact information shortly. Again, I did have one community scale air toxics grant. So I learned a little bit about how those work, but I still don't know too much about when the competition is available, or if it's an annual thing, or how, if it just comes around when they get money. So I'll look more into that. I've had a DERA grant before for a tribe, but it was a few years ago, and I haven't had one. I want to say in like 3 to 5 years it was. So that one currently is 0, but it is possible. Sorry, my screen won't change. There it goes. Okay. I just went ahead and did a bar graph so you guys could just kind of get a visual of, I found some documentation from a headquarters document that kind of had just some solid numbers. Now, I was using a presentation before, so I don't think I'm giving out any information, but I do think that you keep in mind that all of the information from 2008 until about 2018, I believe, no, 2017, those were the amounts that I got from headquarters. So those are inflated a little bit because headquarters pulls money off the top. And I believe those particular amounts still include the money before it was pulled off the top. So if you ever try to look at it against any previous documentation or presentations we've given before, and the number is slightly different, that's why. But generally speaking, the allocation that was associated with Region 6, that gives you a ballpark figure. So you could see, at least I've been in this region since 2006. So at least since then, it's kind of consistently gone down, even though we had a few upswings here and there. We were consistently going down, and now we're back on an upswing. And I also want to put this bar graph in to show you guys, this is how I'm thinking from year to year as a project officer, as well as a tribal air coordinator. I'm always thinking kind of in a 3-year set. The year that we just left, the current year that we're in, and the upcoming year. So I'm kind of looking at grants that if someone has a grant, I'm looking at the money that's on the books there, and the drawdowns and different things like that. And so I can compare it to if that person turns in a proposal for a new grant, we may be able to fund activities, but they may have money that they've been able to save so that we don't have to award them as much new money, and that leaves more money for other new tribes coming in to do grants that don't already have a grant. So I just wanted to give you a visual. That's pretty much all that's representing. And I just put 0 on that one because I just don't know what next year's grant allocation will be. And just to give you an update as to what our proposal situation looked like this year, we received 13 proposals. As you can see, 8 of them were for Section 103 project grants, and 5 for 105, or if they have a PPG and choose to put their air component under PPG, it would go under that. And it comes in just under $1.5 million. We've been told, and I think this is a set number, but I just said approximately because sometimes we get money in from When people close out grants, we're able to filter that money into this and, use more money to fund these proposals or, possible grants. So that's why I put approximately. But as you can see, that leaves us with a deficit of like over 273,000. So from my personal / professional point of view, I want to try to fund as many tribes as possible because this isn't a competition. It's not supposed to be a competition, but because as you see, we have a shortfall, we have to prioritize funding to some degree. But I try to prioritize it first thinking about, I want to make sure every tribe that came in can do something and get an FTE in there. And then we can kind of negotiate the supplies and travel, because as you can see, what we learned in 2020 is that if you have a person on staff, then you may be able to get as much done as you would have, had not going to a meeting, but maybe doing it virtually now. So we're taking all those kinds of things into account when we're looking at who we can fund. But again, my first thought is to try to fund everyone, their FTE, because that can do something. And these are I just put a couple of slides in here to just kind of refresh. When we talk about Section 103, we really are supposed to be talking about project grants, which are short-term, aimed at conducting, as you can see, research investigations, experiments, demonstrations, and basically just projects that give you you have a concern, a specific concern, and you want to see, do you need to move further with that? Or is that something that's, really an immediate need right now that you need to address? So it's just, really the fundamental things that you're looking at. But as you know, because tribes haven't always had the opportunity to get build programs, and because of certain jurisdictional issues, you may only be able to do a Section 103 grant. So we take that into account and we try to do and be as flexible as possible, keeping that in mind, so that we don't cross over into any implementation boundaries, which I'll talk about in a second. And just a reminder, we currently have 11 of these types of grants in here. Also keep in mind, if we can't fund you for a Section 103 grant, if that person is on GAP already, and I know GAP has gone down over the years, but if that person was gonna share their time with this AIR project, you can possibly take some of that training or do some of that work that you wanted to do under this AIR project. There are a few limited things that you can do under your GAP grant. Many of you have started there, so you know what I'm talking about. But like we said, the money's just gone down. So we've tried to accommodate the fact that you need to be able to hire a new person in order to focus any attention on AIR, because that GAP person is just completely swept up, not to mention all the hats that you guys wear with water and everything like that. So we take all of that into account. We're not just trying to push you off and say, oh, go do it under GAP. But we do recognize that if you can do it under GAP, please do certain fundamental things. And again, the Section 105 grant is really when we're talking about implementation work, or if you want to establish and build a program. That, again, the line is very blurry with the activities, specific activities that you can do between 103 and 105. But when we have several tribes that have been able to get treatment as a state, so they knew that they wanted to build a program, and that's kind of why they came in for Section 105 grants. So depending on what your tribe's capacity is, it doesn't always have to, you don't even have to have a person in place who knows what they're doing to be able to come in for a Section 105 grant. You can actually start capacity building and things like that on this grant as well. So there's always a misconception of what you can or can't do, but it's very much overlapping in some areas. And I grabbed this information from a headquarters presentation just because I want to be consistent, but please note that their implementation definition is any activity related to planning, developing, establishing, maintaining such programs. And as you can see, that's a very wide net that you can do things. Again, that was we currently have 4 of those grants. I just put this slide in there just because to remind you that your 105 grants have a match requirement. If you have treatment as a state, then you can come down to a reduced match of 5%. But in the statute, I believe it specifies 40% match. Some of you may have heard of this thing called a maintenance of effort, MOE. I don't think tribes have to worry about that. I think that's only for the states, and that's basically is saying that once you start paying a dollar amount for your match, you have to maintain that dollar amount. That isn't the case for tribes, from what I understand. So if you ever have any questions about it, or somebody comes to you and says, what about the MOE, then let's talk about it, because I'm pretty sure you guys aren't held to that standard. This also has a point in here about raising the match to 10% after 2 years. There's been some in-house conversation. So those of you that have been doing this grant for over 2 years and are still at 5%, I haven't been forced to push you up to 10%. And until I know exactly what's going to happen, I'm going to maintain that. But please don't be surprised if we get some documentation in the future that says tribes that have been monitoring having 105 grants for 2 years, we are now required to move them up for whatever reason. So don't be surprised if that comes your way. But if I ever, hear any information about that, then I'll try to keep you guys abreast of that. And again, because I mentioned treatment of state, I just wanted you to just have a slide with some information on it. The regulations, the act that it's related to, the 301, section 301D is just talking about what entities are eligible for, this sort of thing. And that 40 CFR part 49.7, if I'm not mistaken, that's the criteria. And what you'll see is when you look at that is that every TAS application is pretty much asking the same thing, whether it be for water or what have you under there. And the difference would be, I believe it's like C or something like that, where they ask you about your program capacity. And that's where the different programmatic differences would be of who would be approving it and that sort of thing. So, and again, it's very, you don't have to have capacity built in order to come in for a treatment as a state. So there's ways around, there's ways to be able to do it later. And I wanted to put these 4 authorities on. These are what we consider the non-regulatory Clean Air Act authorities. And I just wanted to have these in there because these are the 4 that we generally have approved tribes for. They're basically giving you a seat at the table in their own way without you having to do anything. You don't have to come in and have a grant in order to maintain these authorities. So if you're going in for treatment as a state for, let's say, Water 106, and you haven't done it yet and you're going in, go ahead and put in a piece for the air as well, and you can go ahead and get these authorities in that one effort, so that it'll cut down for you in the future of having to come in separately for air, these air components. And it'll also, like I said, once you got them, you got them. And that link there at the bottom, I believe, is directly just to Part 49 in and of itself. Again, just to show you, these are the tribes that have one or all of those authorities that have been approved. So, some of them have 105 grants and some of them just have chosen not to come in yet for 105. So that's purely okay. If you have the authority, you have the authority. And if you ever have any questions, although I work to coordinate these applications when they come in, the approvals, Tina Alvarado is our regional counsel, who is the person to talk to. She's our guru. She pretty much is the technical, well, I say technical, but the legal angle who coordinates the real effort. I kind of, play secretary to her because she does everything. And she knows anything that you might need to know about. I know some of you have heard about how to cut corners when it comes to, if you've already been approved for treatment as a state, if you're not changing your boundaries, there may be a way to come in and kind of make it an easier process. She's the person to talk to help you with the logistics about that. Let me come out for a second. Are there any questions? I just want to make sure.
Janae, I don't see any in the chat box yet on my side.
Yes, thank you. Oops, let me come to the current slide. Because I can just talk all day, so I don't want to. I threw this in there just to kind of give you just a reminder that we do have that tribal air grants framework. We call it the menu of options. I believe it was developed by Region 10, and we all kind of use it just to kind of, if nothing else, it gives you some ideas about what types of activities you can do if you're looking to get into air work, whether it be for 103 or you'd like to build an actual program. This can kind of get you started and help you understand some things that you might be getting yourself into and determine if it's worth it or not. But also keep in mind that this isn't all inclusive. These are just kind of standard general things that people tend to, work on. But you can always, like the 103 said, you can always come up with something spectacular we never thought about before. We've had it happen. We've even had, someone came in for a grant like 3 years in a row. They kept coming in because we kept telling them, we don't know if this can be funded. And I think we just didn't know what they were trying to do, but we worked with them and it was, a really interesting project, let me say. And I also put on here, there's a few things that you cannot do. Now we talk about there's so much flexibility with 103 and a little bit, with 105, but there are a few things you can't do as long as it's related, to air and air activities in some kind of way, then we can generally, work with that, but no remediation activities. Indoor air, we can do indoor air, but like there's certain limitations on what we can do. When you're doing monitoring or any type of emissions inventories or any type of data collection, you've got to have an approved quality assurance project plan in place or a QAP. We will not fund any grant also without a QMP. So even if you aren't doing work that's going to require a QAP, your tribe still has to have that QMP approved 30 days before the grants office will let me fund your grant. So make sure your QMPs are always up to date so it doesn't interfere with any of your grant paperwork. And yes, you see the last one, no purchase of construction or real property. And, many of you are kind of aware of this, but just in case you didn't know, I found some information just to have at your fingertips. And again, I just recently assumed the radon grants, the tribal radon grants, and George Brzezowski has been our radon coordinator and contact for as long as I can remember. So as long as I've been in this region, he's been the man. So I'm basically, he's still going to be like a technical contact, and I will basically be his project officer. So if you have any questions about radon grants, even to the point, if you just want to know, can you get one? I still ask him, how does this work? So feel free to call him directly if you don't feel like shooting me an email and you want to contact him directly, feel free. Again, I mentioned before, we have DARE grants sometimes come through our region. Normally it's the national competition, and this year they had the competition open from January 14th through March 16th. If you go to that posting, not only do I think they have the RFP, I went into there a couple days ago, but they have the RFP that just closed if you want to get an idea of what kinds of things it says in there. You can look at it there. And I think they also have, it looks like it's a bulletin board that they have other types of competitions that other headquarters offices might have out there. So it might be a good link just to keep by your side. And like I said before, the tribes this year, they're supposed to be putting a separate pot of money aside for the tribes, so you guys don't have to compete on the same scale with everyone else. So if you click on that link, then that you should, I want to say they said late April, so it could be as early as next week. Click on that link, and when that opens up, you'll be ahead of the game. We're kind of near the end of my presentation, so I just kind of wanted to reiterate, as a project officer, these are the things that I might be talking to you about throughout the year. Normally grants, you guys do such a good job that it's just kind of on cruise control. And as you can see, I'm just the kind of glorified paper pusher from the project officer standpoint. The technical people do all of the reviews and the work with you guys. But the best thing you can do to keep me off of your back and to maintain, what's the word? So basically make sure that you adhere to all of your terms and conditions, to compliance. Sorry, I couldn't think of that word for anything. To make sure you're in compliance with your term and conditions, you want to make sure that you submit your progress reports and any documentation on time. I make sure that I do all of my grants that are under me. So it's all the tribal grants, are quarterly reports. I do that just because things happen. Sometimes we have turnover and I may not catch it. Sometimes I can catch it just because I'm used to someone turning in a quarterly report by a certain date. And if I don't see it and I reach out, then I find out that person might be out sick or they left the tribe. Things happen, and I just do it on a quarterly basis so that we can catch them quicker. And if we need to do an amendment to your grant so that you can get someone else in there to do the work, then I can work with you on that as long as I know what's going on. So I know some people may do a shorter, maybe biannual or just final reports, but I just find it helpful for both of us to kind of stay in contact as much as possible. Because sometimes you guys are doing such a good job that I never speak to you, and I wouldn't speak to you till the end of the grant, which is okay, but I just want to make sure, you're going to reach your goal successfully. Final reports are usually, well, not usually, they are due 90 days by the end of the grant period. So if depending on when that is, it'll change if you amend your grant. So just keep up with the quarterly cycle. If you amend your grant for additional, time, then just make sure and keep up with the quarterly schedule. Quality assurance documents in general, as I have previously stated, we need QMPs to be approved in order to kick out any grant in this region. So please make sure that they're always up to date. When we're dealing with QAPs, if you just got a grant and you're doing a new QAP for the first time, you haven't done a QAP associated with this type of project or activity, under this grant, then we need to make sure that it's in place. There's no set date. It's just, we got to make sure it's in place before you do any data collection. And I would say that your milestone in your work plan would be the date, but I know that things happen and things change. So if it'd be good if you can update your work plan when things like that happen, but if not, just make sure not to do any data collection until you get that QAP approved. And if you've already, been monitoring, let's say, and you have a approved QAP and it's time to renew it, I'm not sure if this is official in our Region 6 QMP, but I know in AIR for many years now, we've required one of the terms and conditions in our grants have been to require people to submit QAP renewals 60 days before they're going to expire. And that's because we have our 30-day review process, but at the end of that 30 days, technically we could say it's disapproved, but we don't want you to come into an expiring grant and then we haven't approved an expiring QAP and we haven't approved your new QAP. So that's why we try to give a little cushion time in there so you can make revisions as necessary and make sure we get everything in place so that your data is good. And the third area that I would be harassing you about would be financial drawdowns. All I can say about that is just to please, generally speaking, you're supposed to make drawdowns as the work is done. So theoretically, if you're at least doing FTE, some type of personnel time or fringe benefit time, then we should see some type of drawdowns, how you get paid. Maybe it's bi-weekly or monthly, however that's set up. But I know that historically, I'm sorry, y'all, I'm in my house and excuse the noise. Bi-weekly or monthly, however you do it is fine. It's just when we start getting past like 100, 120 days and no drawdowns have been made, then it puts up red flags and we start getting nasty grams from headquarters and other, not necessarily headquarters, but grants offices asking what's going on. And we want to make sure two things, that you are able to spend the money. Sometimes people have trouble with the database and they can't draw down. So we just want to make sure we can help you if you are having issues drawing down. If not, it could just be something's going on and the work isn't being done. So we need to make sure that we acknowledge somehow that your work is on pause or that it will continue. You just, needed to do a late drawdown or something like that. But as long as you guys are drawing down somewhat, consistently in a shorter than 120 days, I think is when it really hits time period, then it just creates less red flags. And again, just to kind of give you an idea, since I have everybody on the quarterly report submittal, this is what it looks like. So every year, since we start October 1 and it goes through September, even if you amend your grant, a lot of times people will put 5th quarter, additional quarter, that sort of thing. But you can feel free to put 1st quarter and that year, that fiscal year. So that way, you don't confuse yourself. Sometimes we don't have all the progress reports in one document and it can, you can get confused. So feel free to just do the 1 through 4 quarters over and put the year attached to it. And again, if you have a final report, it's due within 90 days of that expiration date. And it's usually December 31st if your grant closes on September 30th. But like I said, some people amend grants and they continue on, so it might be a later date. One more thing I wanted to mention about the quarterly reports. I have said this before, and I'm okay with it. When you get to the end of your grant and on that fourth quarter report, since it's so close to the final report, if you don't have time to do a specific fourth quarter report, just shoot me an email saying, I'm going to include all this information in my final report or something like that, so that you don't have to do double duty. You know, I don't want you to have to duplicate efforts back to back like that. I know it can be annoying for you guys. You have a lot to do. And finally, the people that really give me everything that I need to help you guys going. Some of them you've heard on this meeting, and others are kind of behind the scenes, but I reach out to them when you guys ask me questions. My emissions inventory kind of coordinator, he really reviews the co-ops and emissions inventory. His name is Randy Petrie, and I hope I said his name correctly. I don't know if people necessarily need to contact him. I normally just have him reviewing stuff for me, but if you do ever need to contact him, there's his information. Again, Cindy and Erica was on with us. There's their information for permitting, any questions about permitting directly, or you can, Erica will be reviewing progress reports that have permitting things in there. And as most of you are learning how to review permits, and she's learning how to review permits, then we'll be able to figure out, you know, things that you should include, and maybe you can start mentioning this, or have you looked at that? So we're all learning things together. And air monitoring, that is really, I got a lot of people, and then I haven't even put everybody on here that I think that even that I reach out to, but these are generally the main people that I reach out to for the specific areas that they would address for me. So if you have any questions and I'm not around, or you don't have time to send me an email, you want to go straight to them, these are the people to help you. Yeah, I think that's it. And again, I'm Anjane Gotro, the project officer and tribal air coordinator, and I'm open for questions if you have any. Should I stop sharing?
Yes, please.
Let me see how to get out of here.
That way you can see the chat box easier. Thank you, Anjane. We appreciate it.
Oh, no, I can't get back to you.
If you just hover at the top of your screen, there should be a stop sharing that pops up.
Okay. See, for some reason, it's like showing my whole, oh, here it is. I had something over it covering it. All righty.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see sometimes.
Yeah, I had your little nameplate thing covered. Okay, open for questions.
I don't see anything in the chat box just yet on my side. Let me check my emails just in case, real quick.
I do have a question. Tribal DERA has no match this year, correct? I do believe that is going to be what it is. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think that is the purpose of them separating the tribal portion out. Yes.
We'll go ahead and give everybody just a couple of minutes, just in case you're typing in the chat box right now, to put in a question if you have one, or a comment in the chat box. You can either direct it towards me or Anjane or everyone. So we'll give everyone a second for that. And if no one has any questions, then we'll go ahead and end this session.
Oh, I think we have one. If you have a surge grant as part of a PPG, is the match waived? That's a good question. That will definitely be a George Brzezowski question. I want to say no, but don't hold me to that. Has anyone had a surge grant and had this situation? Well, I will find out and I will let you guys know. Also, one last thing. I tend to send out FYIs and things like this when I get questions, and I just send it back out to the group. Send me an email if you're not on, if you never get an FYI email from me, please send me an email, gotro.anjane@epa.gov. I'm going to give my presentation, so you'll have all that information. And I can send out stuff like this. I can send out information to the whole group. So I want to make sure everybody's on my distribution list and I have the right email, because I know some emails have changed, but I just don't take them off. I just get the error just in case. But otherwise, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Anjanae. Also, if you have a question that you think of afterwards, or you didn't get it in the chat box in time or something, you can email it to me and I'll be glad to email it to Anjanae. So with that, I think we are done with this session. So everyone, thank you for joining us this afternoon. And our next session is underground storage tanks that will start at 3 o'clock this afternoon. So be sure and join us for that. Thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon.